What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Dirk here from Intelligent Cryptocurrency. Welcome to another video for the channel. Now today I've got a little bit of research for you guys, and I think you're going to enjoy this because it's really interesting to look at. So now that we're moving into this phase where we've seen all these altcoins starting to pop, specifically the DeFi coins, but we've seen coins making multiple 100% gains. We've seen coins making more than 1,000% gains over the last weeks and months. And it's starting to come to a point where it's starting to feel a little bit like 2017, okay, with coins just moving higher and higher and higher. Lots of people starting to talk about stuff. And if you're new to the space, or even if you've been around for a while and you're kind of wondering, what is this next cycle gonna look like? Are we getting a repeat of 2017? Which coins should I buy? When am I going to sell those coins? Well, I'm going to share a lot of info in this video today to be able to help you make better decisions. So if that's the kind of thing that you're interested in and you want to keep getting crypto updates, then go ahead, subscribe to the channel below. Make sure to click the notification bell after you subscribe. And of course, it's always welcome if you do leave a thumbs up on the video and leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts, your questions. I'm always here to read them personally and help you as much as possible. So let's dive straight into it. But before we do, quick legal disclaimer: nothing I share with you on these videos and on this channel is to be considered as financial advice. So one thing when it comes to any sort of investments or especially with cryptocurrencies that you have to understand is that nobody knows the future. Okay, no matter how good of an analyst someone is, no matter their track record, no matter how many YouTube followers they have, or how popular they are on social media, or how much money they have in their bank account, nobody can tell the future. And the best that we can do is just look at the data that we have, compare it to the past, and try and make guesstimates of what is going to happen in future. And of course, with everyone making guesses and analysis, there's going to be people who are going to be right, but there's also going to be a lot that are wrong. And this is something that you have to understand and of course factor into any decisions that you're making. Now, if you've been following me for some time, you'll always know I keep saying don't just blindly listen to anyone, especially not on YouTube or on social media, but anyone in general, even financial advisors, even people who run multi-billion-dollar hedge funds. They get it wrong from time to time, sometimes regularly, okay? So just because someone has a whole bunch of credentials or whatever the case is, doesn't mean they know what the future is going to bring. And you always want to do your own research before making any sort of decision. So what I wanted to do today is to actually go back and look at the previous Bitcoin cycles to be able to see if that gives us any sort of guesstimate that we can move forward, projecting it into the next cycle. So as you probably know, Bitcoin tends to behave in 4-year cycles, and this is because within the Bitcoin code, there is built in that every 4 years approximately, the amount of Bitcoin rewards that is being produced, every single block gets cut in half. The Bitcoin Genesis block was in 2009. Okay, so the first block that was ever mined in Bitcoin. Then we had the first halving in 2012. We had the next halving in 2016. And we've just had a recent halving event in May of this year of 2020. So what I want to go and do is go look back at those cycles, look at some dates, look at some data, and then see how we can apply that to potentially this cycle and make some projections going forward. So if we look at the 2012 cycle, okay, this was the first halving ever. It happened on 28 November 2012. The price at the halving, and we're going to take the high price of the day. So there's open, high, low, close. We're just going to take the high price to be consistent with all the numbers that we use. So the high of the day of the halving was $12.74. Wouldn't you have liked to buy some Bitcoin at those prices? I know I would have. And so this over here, the vertical line, is when the first halving took place. And you can see this is the price action of Bitcoin against the US dollar over the period that followed. So we can see the peak of the cycle date was 30 November 2013. That's this point right over here. And that actually worked out to be 367 days after the actual halving. So just over a year. And the peak of that cycle price was $1,163 at least on the Bitstamp chart. So you can see the cycle gain approximately was 9,128%. That's working off the high. If you work off the close, it can vary a little bit. You can see over here, it does change 9,600, but let's just say somewhere between 9 and 10,000%. That means somewhere between 90 and 100x after the halving the first time, just by holding Bitcoin. If you had bought Bitcoin at that 1274, you could have 91x'd holding it all the way up to the peak of the cycle. Now let's move on to the next cycle. So the second halving that occurred was in 2016. It was on the 9th of July. So we started out with 50 Bitcoin per block by the Genesis block. The first halving, it cut it down to 25. This halving cut it down to 12.5 BTC per block mined. Okay, so at this point, the price at the halving, and once again, we're taking the high price of the day, is $663.99. Then what happened is the cycle, as it continued from 2016 onwards, it hit a peak on 17 December 2017, and this worked out to be 526 days later. Okay, so that was that peak, $19,666. Interesting, 19,666. The cycle gain was 2,961%. So once again, if you would have bought Bitcoin on the actual day of the halving, let's just say the high price, 663.99, you could have held it, and at the very peak of the cycle, it would have been a 29.6x ROI. So now that we have those two cycles and the data of those cycles to work with, let's have a look how we can apply this to the current cycle that we're in, where we just had the third cycle, or the third halving of Bitcoin just in May of this year. So here's what we've got so far. We had the Bitcoin halving date, which happened on 11 May 2020. The price at the halving, once again taking the high price of the day to stay consistent, $8,984 per Bitcoin. So we have some options, because again, this is just guesses and nobody really knows what's going to happen. So if we take the first peak, right, of the first cycle, this was back in 2012 when we had the peak 367 days later. We project that forward. That would mean from the date of the most recent halving, the peak could come as soon as 13 May 2021. Okay. If we take the same length as the previous time, as the halving from 2016, so 526 days later, that would put the peak at 19 October 2021. Now, we have to see, there's some options. So if this is a pattern where it keeps increasing, then we could say the length of time between the peak after the halving keeps increasing. So you can see if we were to project that forward, and it would be 893 days later this time, well, then the peak would only come 21 October 2022. But if we take the average of the two peaks in terms of length after the halving from cycle 1 and cycle 2, it would be 447 days, and that would put the peak of the current cycle at the 1st of August 2021. So that's in terms of time. If we're looking in terms of the percentage gain in cycles, the first cycle there was a gain of 91.28%, so 9,128%. The second cycle there was a gain of 2,961%. If we take the average gain of those two cycles, it would be 6,044%. But again, if we see this as a pattern and there's a consistent reduction in the amount of gains, which I think makes the most sense, because as the Bitcoin market cap grows, it becomes harder and harder to achieve those exponential gains, right? When the price is very low and the market cap is very low, it's much easier. It takes far less capital to actually increase the whole market cap. But then as it grows, it takes more and more money to increase the market cap, right? And that's kind of where we're at. So if we were to see this as diminishing returns every single cycle, and we were to take that same thing, it would work out to be about a 961% gain in this next cycle. And yeah, that's a 9.6x. So I'll project this on the chart in a second. So basically taking these three different gains, we could guess that the next cycle high, if we're taking this gain of 6,044%, the average gain between these two, it would put Bitcoin price at a high of $142,992. If we were to take the same gain that we saw in Bitcoin price after the 2016 halving, it would put it at $266,016. And if we were to take the diminishing return gain of 961%, it would put Bitcoin at a peak of $86,336. Now, of course, these are all guesses, and ultimately the only way we're going to know is in hindsight after everything has happened. Now, I do not think that this is a realistic gain, 6,044% with 500,000. But one thing that we have to consider also is the consistent devaluation of fiat currencies and the insane amount of fiat currency that's being printed, trillions and trillions, tens of trillions of dollars. So the actual value of the dollar is getting less and less and less, and that seems to be accelerating. So again, even though in terms of gain percentages, because the market cap of Bitcoin is increasing, this might sound crazy. If the value of the fiat currency keeps decreasing, then, you know, a Bitcoin may at some point be worth $500,000 or $1 million. But the question is, what do you buy from that $500,000? You know, if it's going to start costing you $10,000 to buy a loaf of bread, well, then, you know, it doesn't really matter too much that a Bitcoin is worth $500,000. Of course it does, but just these are all things that you have to consider. And, you know, like I said, ultimately time will tell. But it's interesting to play around with these numbers a little bit and at least have these based on some sort of previous historic data, even though it's only 2 cycles. So there's really not a lot to go by, but it's interesting to look at nevertheless. So here's a chart, a log chart of Bitcoin against the US dollar. This is a weekly chart, and you can see these vertical lines are the halving dates. So this was in 2012. This one was in 2016. This one is where we're at right now. And this one in 2024 is approximately where the next halving of Bitcoin will take place. Now, looking at these peak cycle dates based on, you know, the first, this was the first cycle. This was the second cycle. This is, you know, if this is a pattern and it keeps increasing, and this is the average of the first 2 cycles, that gives us the length of this projection over here. And the peak of the cycle high, I'm just basing it on the 3 that I just shared with you. So the average gain of the past 2 cycles, or the gain of the same as the 2016 cycle, or the reduction in gain if it's diminishing returns. And this puts this box over here somewhere if BTC can hit that at some point, which actually doesn't look too crazy on this chart. You can see after every halving how much it's jumped up. And if you were to see this jump up, then, you know, it could very well be possible that Bitcoin does at some point within the next 2 years hit this box, or this area in this box somewhere over there. And once again, guys, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. This is just playing with some numbers based on the previous cycles and projecting that forward. It could be completely wrong. It could be right. Ultimately, time will tell, and we'll be able to know in hindsight. Now, one thing I want to talk about a little bit also is because I'm looking at these cryptocurrencies, there might be a lot of you who are actually new to crypto or might be interested in cryptocurrencies, or interested in getting involved in the space, or maybe you've been around for the last cycle and you were wondering, you know, which coin should I hold? Should I hold Bitcoin? Should I hold altcoins? What should I hold? And of course, I can't tell you what to buy or when to buy it or when to sell it, because I am not a financial advisor. What I'm just doing with you here is just sharing previous research and data and facts, so that you can use that to help make you make a better decision. So what we see over here on the chart is a chart of the Bitcoin dominance. So taking the whole market cap of cryptocurrencies and seeing what percentage does Bitcoin hold of that entire market cap versus the percentage that all the other altcoins, the non-Bitcoin cryptocurrencies, hold as a total percentage. And the vertical lines, once again, are the periods of the halving. So July 2016 and May 2020. And basically, the higher the dominance is, the higher of a percentage that Bitcoin has as a share of the overall market cap. So at 100%, Bitcoin would be the only cryptocurrency that has all the value. And obviously at 0, Bitcoin would have 0. So you can see over here in July 2016, before that time, Bitcoin had almost 100%, in the high 90% of cryptocurrency market cap. Now, this makes sense, of course, because crypto was still very young. There weren't very many altcoins. So Bitcoin, being the original cryptocurrency in the space, you know, had most of the market share. And then after the halving, as we started getting more and more altcoins, you can see the share of Bitcoin that Bitcoin had, the dominance of Bitcoin, actually declined a huge amount to in the 30%. Okay, you can see over there. So that basically meant that altcoins were getting an increasingly larger share of the whole cryptocurrency market cap. And this is obviously when the whole crypto cycle peaked in late 2017, early 2018. And that's when people started putting more money back into Bitcoin and the altcoins started losing their dominance. Now you can see over here back in 2019, approximately middle 2019, the Bitcoin dominance once again peaked. And from there, it has slowly started going sideways, meaning that altcoins have started gaining more of a share of the overall cryptocurrency market. Just to compare what happened in the previous cycle, if you compare Bitcoin versus just Ethereum, okay, and Ethereum is considered an altcoin, but it is the second biggest cryptocurrency in terms of market cap and has been for a long time, okay? So during the last cycle, from the date of halving till the peak, that Bitcoin gained 2,961%. But in that same time, Ethereum gained 12,200%. Okay, so while Bitcoin, a gain of almost 30x is definitely nothing to laugh at, right? I mean, if you can 30x your money, that's pretty nice. But if you look at Ethereum, there was possibility for 122x in that same time. So when it comes to the question of should you hold Bitcoin or should you hold altcoins, it depends. Okay, I can't tell you what to do with your money, but this is what the data showed. This is what happened the last time. Is it going to repeat again? I don't know. Is it going to be better to hold Ethereum versus Bitcoin? I don't know. I personally do believe that there will be many altcoins that will outperform Bitcoin in terms of percentage gains during this current cycle. So for the next 4 years, but at the same time, you also have to weigh out the risk. Okay, what is the risk of holding an altcoin versus holding Bitcoin? There might be higher risks associated. Usually with higher gains, there's probably higher risks associated, which means, you know, overall, are you willing to take a higher risk to get a higher gain or not? And that's something you have to weigh out for yourself. Most likely, if you look at the cryptocurrency space, which is still fairly new, a lot of people still just don't trust altcoins and they trust Bitcoin. And I know people who only want Bitcoin and they do not want to touch cryptocurrencies. And I imagine that this would be a popular theme, especially amongst bigger investors or more traditional investors, perhaps amongst hedge funds or banks or family offices or anything like that. You know, Bitcoin on its own is risky enough. The volatility in Bitcoin is crazy. So, you know, if you don't want to take too much risk, I can imagine there being a lot of people who say like, you know, cryptocurrency is interesting. I've seen Bitcoin. It's been around for more than 10 years. I'm going to buy some Bitcoin. But those people might never end up buying altcoins. So in terms of what is safer, you know, you're looking at Bitcoin, which is probably more safe. It's more established. It has higher security in terms of, you know, it has the biggest computer network in the world supporting it with the hash rate. It is the most well-known and so on and so forth. So that's just something you have to take into consideration also, you know, and like I said, you know, in terms of these gains, yes, obviously you'd want 122x gains, but for most people, and especially coming from the traditional world, if they can 30x their money, that is absolutely insane, right? And then why take even more risk on an already highly speculative, highly volatile asset to chase even more gains? So again, I can't tell you what to do with your money, but this is what the data shows. And I personally think that altcoins are going to outperform Bitcoin, and many of them are. Some of them won't, of course. There will be altcoins that won't do anything. There will be altcoins that go to zero. There will be altcoins that are complete scams. So again, you have to do your own research and you have to be very, very careful with what you put your money into. And I do recommend, after you do your own research, go and consult a financial advisor, because I am not that. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider subscribing to the channel below. If you do, hit the notification bell and smash this like button, give it a thumbs up. Let's see if we can get this video up to 100 likes. That would be absolutely amazing. Leave a comment with your thoughts. What do you think Bitcoin's going to do? What do you think is going to happen during this cycle? Are altcoins going to outperform Bitcoin? What are you holding? Anything you want to share with us? Absolutely awesome. I do read all the comments personally. And finally, before I let you go, I do want to let you know, if you are looking for more information about cryptocurrencies, if you want research, if you want analysis, if you want tutorials, how to help you understand all of this, if you want a beginner's course, if you want a trading and TA course, if you want a monthly newsletter, and you want a community where you have access to myself and other members from all around the world interested in cryptocurrencies, then go ahead and check out the link in the description, intelligentcryptocurrency.com. That is where I offer my education program and community, and where you can get access to all that information and the community and just become a part of Intelligent Cryptocurrency. So if you are interested in that, go ahead, check this out. And thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video. Peace.